Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we thought we would go through some of the most frequently asked questions and share our tips, tricks, thoughts, feelings, opinions and general experience from the Mallorca 312. To give you context, we actually flew out on the Friday. That would be our first mistake. We basically arrived on the Friday. There is an expo which is in Alcudia where there's kind of music, cycling brands, there's kind of bikes, there's food, good vibe, and that is also where you go and pick up your race number, jersey, everything that you might need. That is on from, I believe, Thursday and Friday, and I think a top tip from us would be get there on the Thursday if you can. Simply because we arrived on the Friday, we had to make sure our bikes were arriving on time. Small disclosure on that, we had a look at the air tags.
We were stressed the whole flight because it looked like they were left on the runway in Gatwick. We were thinking, we're not going to have our bikes for Mallorca 312.
Yeah, we'd bought our own for this trip because we were doing the full 312 kilometres. We wanted our own kind of bikes with us. Obviously you can bring your own saddles, pedals, etc. to make a hire bike a bit more comfy. But for this particular one, we just wanted bikes that we were used to, you know, kind of used to our own gears, our own brakes, because obviously bikes in Spain would have brakes on the opposite kind of side. So didn't want to have any of that kind of faff to deal with. So we did ship them over using Bike Box Alim, put some air tags in them, and the bikes just looked like they weren't present on flight, which was a little bit concerning, especially when we'd followed all the guidelines around contacting the airlines, checking in nice and early, making sure they were kind of agreed to be on the same flight. So that was just a bit of a stress. So you want to leave yourself plenty of time to kind of get to your hotel or Airbnb or apartment, bed in, and then take in the sights and sounds of Alcudia or wherever you are staying, and then head to the expo with decent time to kind of get all your bits and pieces.
I would say the other thing is ideally you would ride your bike before 312. We didn't do that. We put it together on the Friday, and then the first time we rode it was on the way to 312 on the Saturday morning, which was a bit risky. Really.
That was I think that's a massive error on our part. I don't know why that happened. I think it's because we were so busy doing bits and pieces that we ended up just putting the bike together, having to go and get food, go to the expo, and by the time we came to ride, I think the traffic was just crazy because it was Friday night, and we just thought, you know what, we're good to go.
We were so tired.
We were also very tired because we've been up at like 3 in the morning. So really daft. You definitely want to have time to kind of check your bike over, make sure it's all right, in great working order. You have come on a hire bike, obviously. The one thing you want to make sure is while you're riding around is that everything's kind of in the right position, so your saddle height, like the angle, etc. Make sure that's all super comfy, and that you've kind of got everything you need. Other stuff that we kind of brought with us, we ended up bringing quite a lot of clothing, and one thing we would say is bring different layers. So the race itself actually kicks off super early. I think it was like, what time? Like,
we had to get there like really early. I think it was like 6:30.
Yeah, you had to be on the start line for 6:30, so you're kind of chomping down your breakfast at like 4:30, heading over there really early. And obviously temperatures, we were quite lucky, it was super warm, so it wasn't a cold start, but obviously next year or whenever you decide to do it, it might be slightly colder, so do take a thin kind of packable jacket or gilet, something you can maybe take down and put in your back pocket afterwards. We did have our own gilets for this one, which I did keep on and was sweating throughout, but definitely was glad I had it. On the subject of the early start, do get there as early as you can. So it's a huge event. How many riders were there in total?
I think it was 9,000 or 10,000.
Yeah, that many riders. So it's a lot of humans on bikes, all heading to the same thing. You get allocated a different start pen depending on certain factors, you know, time you were going to complete it, etc. when you fill out your form. But the idea is basically just, if the earlier you get there, the kind of closer you're going to be to your start kickoff. So it means that you're kind of able to find your flow, hit the roads, maybe not be in so much congestion. So we definitely recommend suck up the super early start, chomp down that breakfast, get there as early as you can. And I was super worried about needing the bathroom because I thought, right, I'm going to be stuck in my pen for about an hour, maybe longer, waiting to just ride. ride, what if I need the loo? So top tip is that there are portaloos all kind of throughout the start of the course. Some are kind of down like residential streets, some kind of like cafes and restaurants are open, kind of serving coffees and things like that. So it's possible to go, and there are kind of portaloos. They did start to get a little bit messy as the start line got closer. So one thing I do wish is that the organisers put on female only cabins, just because obviously we were
blaming that on the men.
We were sharing. I'm not blaming it all on the men, but we were sharing those toilets with blokes, and all I'm saying is there was nervous energy hitting the pans. So yeah, don't worry about bathrooms, because you can hop out your pen, use the loo and kind of get back in all before kickoff. And in terms of location, so the start pens are actually also where the final is as well. So it all kind of kicks off and ends in the same place, which is super handy. So something to bear in mind when it comes to location for where you want to stay. We actually decided to stay super close to the start and finish line just because of that early start. So it did mean basing in the Alcudia area. So I imagine the race will start in the same place next year, or does every year, I'm not too sure, but that is something to kind of think about. Make sure you haven't got a huge roll home if you're maybe planning on really pushing yourself and you might be completely exhausted at the end. I really did enjoy the fact that we just pootled back to our hotel with barely any extra kilometres. And then in terms of nutrition, so I mean it starts early.
I think it starts days before that you want to start carb loading. We got some really good advice to do that. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for that advice.
Yeah.
So we were having like a lot of carbs, like more so than usual, cutting down on any kind of food that was going to be difficult to digest in the days before.
Yeah.
So cutting down on fibre, cutting down on red meat, that kind of thing, which actually really helped.
Yeah.
I think nutrition went as well as it could have. And also, you have to practice, I would say like weeks before, what kind of carbs you're going to eat on the ride, like all of the gels. So at these events, they give out all of these different gels, but they're brand new. If you don't know those gels, you're taking a huge risk by having them if you're not familiar. So you could either do research, find out which ones they're going to give away and try them before,
that's a good shout.
Just take your own and just stick to your own. I think I resorted to using one unknown gel out of desperation.
Dangerous.
But it was fine. But it could have gone wrong.
Yeah, I picked up one which was chock full of caffeine, and I tend to avoid those just because the previous marathon experiences with caffeine filled gels are a little bit jittery to say the least. So practice your nutrition.
What I would say with nutrition as well, there are so many different feed stops. Some are just kind of water, liquid, some are food and drink. But we wanted to avoid the first one because we knew it would be super busy. So what we ended up doing is actually carrying a bar bag where we crammed it full of gels. I think we had like powdered carb mix as well, where we would just get water in other stops. Just take as much food as you can so you're not reliant on those stops. And also we bought like massive bottles. I think we had like 1 litre.
1 litres,
Which meant we just didn't need to stop at the first one. So we actually saved a bit of time there, which is good.
I mean, they were heavy, the 1 litre bottles, you know, when you're going up hills. But at the same time, we did kind of want to avoid the first couple of stops. So some of the feedback from previous years had been that there weren't enough kind of feed stations and they were just completely overcrowded. So from what we've heard, because obviously this was our first time doing it, that this year's was actually a little bit more spread out. And we did find that they were quite busy for the first couple. So we still did just plan on swerving those where possible. But there were kind of quite a few clusters of them if you did need to. And also some really handy kind of setups where it was like metal rails with taps on, where you could just kind of ride in even, fill up your bottles and then like scoot off if you only wanted water, or queue and get kind of a bit more food or nutrition if you needed it in a different spot. So that was quite handy. But some of the other feed stations were just absolutely wild, pumping with people just kind of tired, especially near the end, like staggering about, wheeling their bikes quite exhausted, just trying to chug down as much food as possible. And then the final feed station was just phenomenal. Like, I don't even know, that was just like some absolute party.
285k.
285k, where you just kind of wheeled in, and there was just huge Mallorcan crowds, like just getting drunk, enjoying the vibes. There was music. I think when we wheeled in, they offered if we wanted like a can of Coke or a margarita, and I was like,
Or a beer.
Or a beer, yeah. And we were like, what on earth? There's still kind of 30k to go. So up to you if you choose to hydrate in that way for the final stop. But that basically felt like the ride was done. So yeah, there was just actually a big gap, I think, for the final stretch if you're doing the 312, where water felt quite scarce, and that was something that we experienced. Like our bottles, even though we had the big 1 litres, they did run out. So skull cap of pain and dehydration kicked in on that final stretch. So yeah, something to bear in mind is just monitor your water and food and drink levels. The bar bag was an absolute touch, and that also had, so as well as kind of gels and sachets, that also had multi-tool. It had some extra kind of inner tubes for us as well. So yeah, that was an absolute winner. I've actually got a link to the one we've used. So again, I'll pop that down below in the description if you want to have a look and get one. The only downside to the bar bag is that when you do go and get your race number, you've obviously got your jersey, and then they also kind of give you a chipped, what would you call the front thing?
I think it's a timing chip. It's got like the little tracker and it's got your race number on the front. So
yeah.
All of the official photographers, they use that to determine who you are, and then they send you an email afterwards saying, look at all of these photos of you. But
yeah.
Because mine was behind the bar bag.
He wasn't there. He basically didn't do it. Yeah, he basically didn't do the event, so no photo evidence.
And my timing chip messed up as well.
Yeah.
They had me down on the website for 2:25 for some reason, so they didn't record my official time.
Yeah. So we basically didn't do it. So yeah, if you do use a bar bag, just one thing to note is make sure that kind of time and chip is on show. And then the actual race itself, so some things that we were aware of before was the fact that it was like a closed road event, but for some reason for both of us it didn't fully register that it's a closed road, so therefore you can take kind of nice big corners. There's kind of, you can use both sides of the road and no cars are going to come down it. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Like, just try and get your head around that as early on as possible so you're making the most of that, especially when you're descending too. And then I think just bear in mind that some people are going to be going super fast, like way faster. Some people have, you know, got times they want to do or want to absolutely smash up the climb. So do try and keep to the right hand side so that anyone who does want to go fast and smash past can just overtake you and just kind of make their way through. So something to think about. And then if you can, practice some group riding before going out. So this event was just full of massive kind of groups, especially at the start line. You're kind of already grouped together in huge bunches of riders. It does kind of spread out, but on the flat and fast, you're all kind of working together to kind of get out and onto the actual hilly course. And then once you're on the hills, obviously the groups kind of disband, but there's sections maybe where you do want to kind of form a group just to be a little bit more efficient. Like we experienced quite a lot of wind, didn't we, like coming down a couple of the hills and climbs. There were some really windy sections, so it paid to kind of know what you were doing and working together. And yeah, on the flatter bits, I guess there was quite a lot of, what would you call them, chain gangs forming.
I was going to say carnage.
Carnage, yeah, carnage.
Just bottles flying out of people's cages, people braking in the middle of thousands of cyclists going 45 kilometres an hour on the flat.
Yeah.
People getting out of the saddle so their back wheel like jumps backwards. It was pretty dicey. So I think you need to be confident riding in a group for that first 20k, especially leading up to the first climb. It did like dissipate and it all spread out then. Yeah. But the roundabouts, when people were
the roundabouts
going 45k, braking, which then caused like everyone else to brake behind. Lost count the amount of times that people were holding their hands up. People
were shouting, slowing, etc. But yeah, you had to be, considering you had such an early start, you had to be alert, you had to be awake, you had to keep an eye on what was going on in front of you. Yeah, so also just basically try and get as comfortable as you can with group riding so that you feel quite confident, maybe hopping on a little wheel to have a little wheel sock, and then also contributing to the group. So when the time is right, obviously taking a turn and helping other people as well, because no one likes a wheel sucker. But it was a bit of a free for all, I think, on some of the flat, wasn't it? Like people were kind of just sharing wheels, inviting you to jump on. It didn't feel like rude, did it?
Why did you look at me when you said wheel sucker?
Pardon?
No, I think we both did our fair share.
Yeah, we did our fair share, but I think just be confident enough to, just take an opportunity and then also give back. That would be some nice advice. In terms of other bits and pieces, what else can we say? I've got my notes here, sorry.
I would say when you're riding in groups, that's a really good opportunity just to chat to people. There were so many people that were I don't know, they were kind of like taking it very seriously and not really talking, but you should just talk to people. You're like probably never going to see these people again.
Yeah.
And you're there like sharing this amazing experience.
Yeah.
Most people are friendly if you talk.
I think quite a lot of people were actually really friendly. So yeah, if you do see someone who's happy to have a chat, obviously some people are struggling on climbs and that's maybe not the time, is it? But
don't start talking to people when you're doing 500 watts. That's not the right time.
Outrageous. Definitely not. So if we were to think about what would we do differently, which I think is, you know, I'd want to know that of anyone, what would you say? How would you summarise?
I would say the main thing for me is we didn't get our travel dates right. We should have gone earlier, not the day before, because we were flying. You know, your legs just get a bit funny on a flight. You know, you're just sitting down in the same place.
A little bit swole.
A little bit, fat ankles sort of thing. And then we were just doing 312 the next day, and we also didn't get used to where we were staying. So on the morning of, like
you got told off.
4:30. We didn't know where to go to breakfast, and the guy who was running breakfast was obviously furious to be up that early.
Hang on, side note, the hotel we stayed in were super kind. Obviously, it was
brilliant.
Full of
they
cyclists. Really, but because there were so many 312ers, they actually had agreed to put on breakfast really early. So normally, for context, it was kicking off about, I think, 8:15 or 7:45. They kindly set up breakfast, like, as in the whole rig. Yeah, a good 3 hours early. So literally like 4:30, there was like eggs, beans, all the pastries were out. So I would have been annoyed to be up that early as well. But yeah, we didn't know what we were doing.
No, this poor bloke, he was like, you know, opening the kitchen 3 hours early.
Yeah.
He'd obviously been up since like 3, maybe?
Maybe more.
Maybe earlier. And so we walk in and we were like, we literally don't know where to sit. And he was like, where'd you sit yesterday? And I was like, we didn't get you into that. Like, I don't know where to go. And
it wasn't a free-for-all. You had certain tables, which we didn't realise. So I was like, we can just sit here. But everything had names, labels, a plan. And so, yeah, we didn't know how it all worked, how it all operated. So we came in fresh, came in hot.
So I started the day getting told off.
Yeah.
Which is
like
not ideal.
4:35. Anything else you would do differently?
Well, the day before we flew, we tried to do all of our life admin, like taking all of the animals to the pet sitters, doing a full day's work, picking up the bike boxes, which are actually an hour's drive away, and then taking apart the bike, put it in the bike boxes, pack it all up, packing like our bags and suitcase, like just tried to do way too much in one day.
Yeah.
And I was just like full on stressed for the whole day, which is not ideal prep.
That's more on us. So I think the takeaway from us is don't do what we did, basically, and give yourself more grace. So yeah, it was full on. Anything in terms of the actual day though?
We should have paid more attention to when the big gaps between the feed stations were. So between 220 and 285, 65k gap, that is when we ran out of water.
Yeah.
And that is actually a really long time, especially if you're not in a group. And we did drop out of a group at that point. So we weren't going 35k on the flat. We were doing like 25k.
Yeah, maybe less, because at that point I think I'd started to get a little bit crispy and dehydrated. It was also where we had our first domestic.
No, that was our only domestic of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, that was the only one. But I think because we were both tired, parched, and now I was like crisping at the edges, there were some choice words.
Absolutely.
Which could have been avoided. So yeah, do really monitor those feed stops.
It was quite funny because we were both dehydrated, like getting angry with our lips, like sticking to our teeth.
You can't really stay angry at each other when you're both like, stop it, you give me that bell, no you.
Yeah, it was just silly really.
It was just a good experience.
Yeah, we should have taken on more water at that last feed stop rather than just like go in and grab something.
Yeah.
And I think I made one bad food choice, which was, I think it was like a Nutella sandwich.
Oh.
It was the dustiest thing I've ever seen. It was so bad. Which didn't help with the dry mouth.
Yeah, grateful for the food, but yeah, poor choice, really poor choice. And then in terms of everything else, I think everything else went pretty smoothly. Yeah, I don't know, there's nothing else standing out for me other than the water situation. Sign up, do it, don't fear the distance, don't fear the hills. Brilliant event for all abilities, all kind of types of riding, whether you're just enjoying it for the views, if you're going after a PB, if you're wanting to just kind of wreck yourself up hills and smash out the flats. I think it had something for everyone, didn't it? And it was incredible. And the three different options I think are also very inclusive, because the 167 is still an absolute challenge.
So hilly.
So hilly. So I think anyone who completes any distance is an absolute champion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think huge thanks as ever to all the kind of volunteers, the crowds that come out. They are the people who kind of make the event. And there were so many, like it was just fab.
People on the side of the road in the last 10k is just so good.
So good. I guess the main questions that were coming up was, would we do it again? So, Eyes, would you do it again?
Yeah, I think I would actually. I would definitely do it again. Full distance, I would do it again.
Why?
Because I want to see if I could go any faster, really.
Right.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Loved it.
Really, really liked it.
I would also do it again. I wanted to do the 312 this time around for a combination of reasons. It was the longest distance I'd ever ridden. I think it was for you as well. I think it was the most elevation as well that I've ever done on a ride. So yeah, it was a huge goal to kind of get to the distance and also do all that climbing. All of the climbing is in the first kind of 220-ish, isn't it?
I think it's in the first 160, really.
First 160, yeah. All the kind of major climbing's banked in the first 160, so I don't know. I really enjoyed all of the climbing, and I think maybe if I did it again, I'd want to see if I could go faster on the climbs. Because yeah, the last kind of 80k, I guess, is pretty much relatively flat. Like I mentioned in the other video, there is kind of a few little digs here and there, like very minimal. But yeah, you're kind of cruising the camis, racking up the distance. So the main climbing, if you're someone who just wants to kind of really push themselves up hills or yeah, challenge themselves in that way and isn't too bothered about distance, I would probably say the 220 is for you, or 225. So yeah, I don't know, but I could always be tempted to do the full 3 again. There is the opportunity to turn off for the 167, I think it is. Yeah. And then again, when you kind of, there is a fork in the road if you wanted to just wrap up at 225 or carry on to 312. And at that point, there was a moment in my mind where I was like, could turn off, but obviously did the full. So yeah, in a long-winded way, I would say yes, I would do the full 3, but I would do the 225 if I was just gonna go on an epic hill chomp. And yeah, try and push it. But who knows? I feel like we are gonna probably enter again next year. We will.
What I will say though is like it has dominated the first 3 months of the year, because we've just been like, right, we have to get the miles in.
Yeah.
So maybe if we had other plans, I don't know, maybe we would do a shorter one. Yeah, we just have to be prepared. If we want to do the 312 again, we just have to dedicate the time.
Yeah. On the same token, it also was brilliant winter training motivation, just because we knew we had it coming up, and the pair of us aren't quite natural 300-kilometre riders. Like over time, we've maybe well, I'll speak for myself. I found the increase up to 300k quite a lot. Like now, I absolutely love 100k rides. I do quite like a 160, but it's taken time to kind of build up to that. So yeah, I think if it's still a huge whopper challenge, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. Yeah, it's massive. But I would say I'm quite well suited to it, but my knees aren't.
Yeah, that's another key factor. But yeah, it's a brilliant timed event, and also the weather is amazing. I feel like even if it wasn't amazing, great weather, it would still be better than it was in the UK. The scenery is impeccable, and obviously the climbing was, you know, second to none. So in terms of timing, location, event itself, and the whole way it was run, I think it was brilliant. So yeah, I can't really fault it, and I do want to do it again. I think now I've actually talked myself back into it, like I actually do want to do it again, so maybe we'll see. See you next year, guys. As ever, if you like what you see and you enjoy our vids, please do smash the subscribe button, give us a like and leave us a comment below. If you also run the ride, give us hello.